from the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California, the Republican candidates debate. Here now are Brian Williams.
Second rebuttal. You spent your career in that fine profession of elected office. Your reaction to that?
Well, Governor Romney left the private sector. He did a great job of creating jobs in the private sector all around the world. But the fact is, when he moved that experience to government, he had one of the lowest job creation rates in the country. So the fact is, while he had a good private sector record, his public sector record did not match that. As a matter of fact, we created more jobs in the last 3 months in Texas than he created in 4 years in Massachusetts.
Well, let's widen this out, and let's bring in Mr. Kaine on one side and
wait a second.
Senator. Go ahead, Mr. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, let's wait a second.
We can do this all evening.
Yeah, states are different. Texas is a great state. Texas has a zero income tax. Texas has a right to work state, a Republican legislature, a Republican Supreme Court. Texas has a lot of oil and gas in the ground. Those are wonderful things. But Governor Perry doesn't believe that he created those things. If he tried to say that, well, it'd be like Al Gore saying he invented the internet. Look, the reality is there are differences. There are differences between states. I came into a state that was in real trouble. Huge budget gap, losing jobs every month. We turned it around. 3 out of 4 years, we had unemployment rate below the national average. We ended up with 4.7% unemployment rate. I'm proud of what we were able to do in a tough situation.
Time, Governor Perry.
I know back and forth, but Michael Dukakis created jobs 3 times faster than you did, Mitt.
Well, as a matter of fact, George Bush and his predecessor created jobs at a faster rate than you did, Governor.
That's not correct.
Yeah, that is correct.
Nice to see everybody came prepared for tonight's conversation. As I said, I'd like to...
Already released. I call it my 999 economic growth plan. Throw out the current tax code, a 9% tax on corporate income, a 9% tax on personal income, and a 9% national sales tax. If 10% is good enough for God, 9% ought to be good enough for the federal government. This would replace all...
He doesn't get the part that what will fix the U.S.-China relationship, realistically, is fixing our core right here at home. Because our core is weak and it is broken, and we have no leverage at the negotiating table. And I'd have to say, Mitt, now is not the time in a recession to enter a trade war. Ronald Reagan flew this plane. I was in China during the trip in 1984. He went on TV, he spoke to the Chinese people. I'd love to do that too, in Chinese itself. And he talked in optimistic, glowing terms, and it reminds me about this, Brian. We are the most blue sky, optimistic people on earth. We're going to find solutions. And I have an offer for the 2 great governors over here. And I hate to rain on the parade of the great Lone Star governor, but as governor of Utah, we were the #1 job creator in this country during my years of serving. That was 5.9% when you were creating jobs at 4.9%. And to my good friend Mitt, 47th just ain't going to cut it, my friend. Not when you can be first. We've got to remember that to beat President Obama, we have to have somebody who's been in the private sector, understands the fragility of the free market system, has been a successful governor as it relates to job creation, and knows something about this world. I've lived overseas 4 times. I've been an ambassador for my country 3 times. I think I understand that.
Governor Huntsman, time. Congresswoman Bachmann, over to you in American life. Which current federal regulations have been prohibitive or damaging in terms of your own small business?
Well, I think without a doubt, there's 2 that you look to. First of all are the new regulations that are just being put into place with Obamacare. As I go across the country and speak to small...
Known as the absolutist in the bunch, someone who has consistently opposed federal government from having any role, and I think by your definition that isn't explicitly... Wrote the foreword to Rick Perry's most recent book called Fed Up, and you called him, quote, uniquely qualified to explain what's taking place with the economy. Does that mean in terms of job creation credentials he has your proxy at a gathering like this?
No, but it means if he wants to write another book, I'll write another foreword.
The country. I'm going to get to you in just a minute. What I'd first like to do is ask if anyone else on this stage agrees that the Massachusetts example was a great opportunity for the rest of the country. No?
No. It was a great opportunity for us as a people to see what will not work, and that is an individual mandate in this country.
Got it. That's actually Governor Romney leads to my question. I've heard you on this many times before. You said some things about the Massachusetts law worked, other things didn't work as well. Let's go to what Governor Perry mentioned, the individual mandate. The government saying that people have to buy health insurance. Was that one of the things that worked in Massachusetts?
Let's step back and make sure I make something very clear from the very outset. I understand health care pretty darn well, having been through what I went through as a governor. And one thing I do on day one if I'm elected president is direct my Secretary of Health and Human Services to put out an executive order granting a waiver from Obamacare to all 50 states. It is bad law. It will not work, and I'll get that done in day one.
For other states, but Massachusetts has nearly universal health insurance. It's first in the country. In Texas, about a quarter of the people don't have health insurance. That's 50 out of 50, dead last. So it's pretty hard to defend dead last.
Well, I'll tell you what the people of the state of Texas don't want. They don't want a health care plan like what Governor Romney put in place in Massachusetts. What they would like to see is the federal government get out of their business. For Medicaid, for instance. As a matter of fact, I bet Mitt and John would both agree, and I know Newt would as well. Medicaid needs to be block granted back to the states so that we can use the innovation in the states, come up with the best ways to deliver health care. My wife is a nurse, and I'll promise you, we understand that if we can get the federal government out of our business in the states when it comes to health care, we'll come up with ways to deliver more health care to more people cheaper than what the federal government is mandating today with their strings attached. Here's how you do it. One-size-fits-all effort out of Washington, D.C. That's got to stop. And I'll promise you, on day one, as the President of the United States, that executive order will be signed and Obamacare will be wiped out as much as it can be.
Governor, quick follow-up. Why are so many people in Texas uninsured?
Well, bottom line is that we would not have that many people uninsured in the state of Texas if you didn't have the federal government. We've had requests in for years at the Health and Human Services agencies to have that type of flexibility, where we could have menus, where we could have co-pays, and the federal government refuses to give us that flexibility. We know for a fact.
Massachusetts, a mandate, almost no one uninsured. In Texas, a more limited approach, about a quarter uninsured. Who's got the better end of this argument?
Well, I'm frankly not interested in your effort to get Republicans fighting each other. You would like to puff this up into some giant thing. The fact is, every person up here understands Obamacare is a disaster. It is a disaster procedurally. It was rammed through after they lost Teddy Kennedy's seat in Massachusetts. It was written badly. It was never reconciled. It can't be implemented. It is killing this economy. And if this president had any concern for working America...
On another front, you're a devout Catholic. You've always said that you will not place it aside in your role in elected public life. In fact, you thought President Kennedy, the first to be elected president, did so a little bit too much with his own religion. Having said that, the Catholic faith has, as a part of it, caring for the poor. 1 in 7 people in this country now qualifies as poor. Where do the poor come in? Where do they place in this party, on this stage, in a Santorum administration?
There's no one in the 12 years I was in the United States Senate that did more to work on poverty issues and working on the poor than Rick Santorum. I was the author, when I was in the House of Representatives, under the tutelage of Newt Gingrich at the time, of the Welfare Reform Act. And we didn't pass welfare reform to cut money. We didn't pass welfare reform to punish anybody. We changed the welfare system because it was punishing people. We had a federal system that was creating a culture of dependency. And we went out and talked to the American public and said, trust us to end this federal entitlement, put a work requirement in place, put a time limit on welfare, give the flexibility to the states with a block grant, and we will transform this system from a dependency system to a transitional system. And it worked. Half the people in this country were dropped off the rolls, and they didn't go into poverty. In fact, poverty went to the lowest level ever in 2001. The rate of black poverty among children, lowest ever recorded. Working women who were never married went to the highest level, increased by 50%. We transformed the welfare system because we believed in the dignity of every human person to be able to provide provide for themselves. We believed in bottom up, not top down. We need to do the same thing with food stamps. We need to do the same thing with housing programs. All of these other means-tested entitlement programs that are creating a culture of dependency have to be changed, not to save money, but to save people's lives.
Time, Senator.
You said you wrote the book Fed Up to start a conversation. Congratulations. It's certainly done that in recent weeks. In the book, you call Social Security the best example of a program that, quote, violently tossed aside any respect for states' rights. We understand your position that it's got funding problems now. I'd like you to explain your view that Social Security was wrong right from the beginning.
Well, I think any of us that want to go back and change 70 years of what's been going on in this country is probably going to have a difficult time. And rather than spending a lot of time talking about what those folks were doing back in the 30s and the 40s is a nice intellectual conversation, but the fact is we got to be focused on how we're going to change this program. And people who are on Social Security today, men and women who are receiving those benefits today are individuals of my age that are on in line pretty quick to get them. They don't need to worry about anything. But I think the Republican candidates are talking about ways to transition this program. And it is a monstrous lie. It is a Ponzi scheme to tell our kids that are 25 or 30 years old today, you're paying into a program that's going to be there. Anybody that's for the status quo with Social Security today is involved with a monstrous lie to our kids, and it's not right.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Let me follow.